Hello, this is a prepaid collect call from
the weaker vessel. Hello.
Hey.
So this seems a little odd. It's going to be odd because Sondra and I were just talking for like 5 minutes thinking we were recording, but we weren't.
Because those are the people we are. That's so funny.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so let's just recap what we already talked about, yeah?
Yeah, sounds good. So
We should be able to do it more efficiently and with less words because we've already done it once.
I mean, they might be happy about it. They might be like, oh, good. We didn't really want to hear all that anyways.
Maybe we could say in 1 minute what we said in 5 minutes, and that would just be really good for our listeners. Okay, so what I was doing and doing currently is brewing some tea. And I wanted to tell you that I had found the tea that you were recommending in the last episode.
Mm-hmm.
And I gave it a grade 7 out of 10. It's good. I really like it. I think it's tasty. I would happily drink it. I feel like I did not brew it correctly. Like I think I need to like steep the tea bag longer. Because it just didn't have as like potent of a flavor as I was expecting based on the smell. Anyway,
yeah, and I was saying that I make mine during dinner, so mine probably does steep more than yours because I will I just leave the tea bag in. Honestly.
Gotcha. Okay, so it tastes like those bag. I figured it out. This is when I was asking you in the last episode, you didn't know. I figured it out for us. It's what it tastes like.
Okay.
And I mean this in a good way. This is not disparaging, okay? I mean, unless you hate cinnamon, then I guess it's probably not going to be for you. But anyway, it tastes like those like bagged cinnamon pine cones that you get from the grocery store, mixed with like a seasoned log.
Like in the best way possible.
Yeah, like it has that like musty, woodsy, earthy sort of flavor to it. That's what it tastes like to me. And I liked it.
That's what it tastes like?
Yeah, it smells and tastes like.
It smells like. Smells and
well,
tastes
the
like.
smell is just stronger than the taste. That's all. But I think it's because I brewed it wrong. That's why I think that's where the discrepancy came in.
You need to let it steep more and then tell me what you think. Now you had another one that you got that you were recommending.
Yes. So whilst I was purchasing that one, I also purchased one, the brand is Stash, like STASH, and the flavor was licorice spice. And I haven't tried it just yet, but I'm fixing to. And
so we don't have that one. I mean, I had you go ahead and say it because I was in the tea aisle.
Oh, you don't have it?
No, they don't have that brand.
Bummer. I got mine at Hannaford's. Maybe you could went to a grocery store in your area.
Yeah, I'll have to try next time I go to Kroger or Publix or something like that.
It looks like a little bit more bougie than your typical Twinings or Bigelow,
Well, maybe that's the problem. You're being too bougie with your tea.
I mean, it wasn't expensive. I think it was $4.
Yeah.
It's not but you know how you can get the Twinings brand for $2 or whatever, which is what I usually buy because I actually really do like the peppermint tea. Anyway, this was the one step up from that one. So anyway, then we're sort of talking about licorice and how we both love licorice so well. But this is why.
We do.
Because I love anise. Anise is one of my absolute favorite flavors. And I feel it's not a common flavor. A lot of recipes and stuff don't, I don't know. Back in the day, a lot of my great grandmother's recipes from Germany have actual anise, ground anise seed in it. In her cookies or cakes or whatever, it was more common. So I don't know if that's a German thing, if it's an old recipe thing, but that is definitely not common nowadays. But I think it's because people don't like licorice. And licorice and anise are basically the same flavor.
Like black licorice.
Yeah, black licorice. That's true, because black licorice and red licorice are two different flavors.
They are, and I was saying that I don't really know any, since living in the South, I don't know anybody that really likes it either. But if like at home, like in Washington State, they you can buy the big like plastic tub of it, like the red vines, but you can get it in like the black licorice. Anyways, and so sorry, I just found a great deal on bacon, $1.73. So we're gonna get some.
So I just took my first sip, and it is fantastic. 9 out of 10.
Awesome.
Like if you like licorice, like if you like black licorice jelly beans, you would love this. Tastes just like it. I put a little bit of my creamer in it again. Oh, it's so good.
Anyway, so you can get them there, but
would you switch laundry, please?
But
where's that curling iron?
But most people in the South, I've noticed, are not like crazy about black licorice, and I've noticed that most people prefer Twizzlers, which I'm like, it's not the same thing.
Why is it on the floor? Okay, hang on 1 second. Gotta handle this.
Okay.
Okay, sorry. Dog's in the trash.
Nope, you're good.
Will you watch her, please? She's kind of on the prowl now. She woke up from her nap and now she's kind of hyper.
She's like
anyway,
ready to play.
I agree with you. Sorry to cut you off.
But I prefer like red vines over Twizzlers, very much so.
See, and I don't know that I know the difference. But it's not because I don't believe you. It's because I don't know that I have thought for that answer. You know?
They're just different. They just like, I feel like I'm not red vines. I feel like Twizzlers taste like what plastic would taste like.
Like what taste like?
Like if I wanted to eat plastic, that's what it would taste like.
Oh, I thought you said like toxic would taste like. Like, wow, you've got very strong feelings.
I feel very strongly about this. You better not disagree. This could end our friendship.
I believe you. That's so funny. Oh my goodness. I love black jelly beans. I love like black licorice. I'm just so here for all those flavors.
Nope, I'm there with you. Also in the South, people love the Starburst ones. They feel very strongly about that.
My husband loves those.
I mean, I like them. I mean, they're good, but I love black licorice. It's by far my favorite.
So do you also like, are you big like gummy kind of like a gummy candy kind of person?
I like gummies. Like, I mean, I don't know if I'm big. I do like the classic gummy bears.
Like Haribo?
Yeah. It has to be like the classic flavor and everything.
Gotcha. See, I don't love gummy. It's like a texture thing for me, and I am not like a weird texture person. Like I can eat them. My vitamins actually are gummies. But it's not a thing that I would ever seek for, I guess. But I love. So I mean, I guess in my mind, jelly beans and gummies are like a similar texture. They're fine. Like if you have like jelly beans like out on a table or something, like I might have a couple. Like I don't hate them. But it's like, I don't go for jelly beans ever. I don't really go for gummies. But you put black jelly beans out and I will eat the whole dang bag.
This is what I really, really love. And I love like almost anything mint.
Anything what?
Anything mint. I love mint.
Oh, mint.
But this is why, is because my grandmother always had double mint gum. And we spent a lot of time with my grandparents growing up. And she always had double mint gum, so she'd always like give us double mint gum. And my grandfather owned like a car repair business, towing and stuff, and he'd do like body work and all this stuff. Anyways, but in his like little garage where he worked, he had like a candy machine, and it was stocked with like junior mints. So we would always run up. We just called it Grandpa's garage, of course, because that's all it was. And we'd run up there from the house, because they had like probably 20 acres or something like that, and it was at the other end of the property. So we'd run down there and we would bother Grandpa and bug him until he'd go over to the machine and get us some junior mints. And then he'd send us off with junior mints and we'd go eat them. And then, sure enough, here we come again.
See, I think that's why I like black licorice so much, because my grandfather had barbershops. He's a master barber. And he had 4 different barbershops. And in each of his barbershops, he had these candy dishes, like the old-fashioned pretty ones that you and I like so well. Mm-hmm. And then he always had these like hard anise candies. And whenever we would go visit him or like pick him up from work or whatever, we always like dipped our hands in the candy dish and grabbed a few and filled our pockets. And I think like out of all of his grandkids, we all like anise and black licorice. I'm pretty sure universally.
Because that's what we grew up. We grew up eating mints and basically black licorice.
Yeah, it's like the nostalgia. I actually am not a huge mint fan, but I don't, once again, I don't hate it. I like it in certain forms. So like, don't love mint and chocolate together. I can't do mint and chocolate together. Don't care for it.
I can, like if it's like an ice cream. I don't, not a really strong, like I like junior mints, but like not like a super strong. Like, I couldn't have like a huge bowl of like, I don't know, mint ice cream. Like it would have been so big. No. Okay, that's just too much, yeah. Or the other, okay, so Starbucks just came out with their Christmas, not Starbucks, sorry, that was bad, Dunkin'. And one of it is like a chocolate, like a mocha mint. Mm-hmm. And we took the kids to the zoo yesterday, so on the way home, I was like, hey, Blaine, should we stop and get us some coffee? And, he's 16, so he's like, yeah, because he thinks it's really cool because he's drinking coffee. Mm-hmm. And so we stopped and that's what I got. And literally, like, I was like, okay. By the time I got like probably a quarter of the way through, I was like, I'm good. This is like so sweet and so minty. I'm done.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not big on mochas in general. Okay, I guess I'm just like pickier than I thought I was. This is what I'm realizing. I like chocolate, but I don't like chocolate and coffee together. It's weird. I just like, maybe it's a combination thing, but I guess I've learned today that I am pickier than I thought I was. So there's that. Anyway.
Well, some things are getting worked out, I guess.
Speaking of things getting worked out, though.
It was good. It just was like, I got like a medium, and by the time I was like, okay, I'm done.
Yeah, it's just too much. Enough. It's too rich. It's too. Yeah. I don't know.
That's what it was. It was too rich.
I don't really care for it. It's not for me. I love chocolate and caramel, but anyway. So in the theme of working things out in your heart, let's get on to the topic that we wanted to talk about today, because I feel very strongly about this too.
A lot of strong feelings happening today.
Oh, the strong feelings. Let's be honest. You and I always have strong feelings about whatever we talk about.
I prefer to stay in denial about that one.
Whatever we're talking about, just note, Sondra and I feel pretty passionately about it. Okay, so I have had several conversations with different friends in recent weeks about this topic of loyalty and friendships and heartbreak. And one of my dear friends is a pastor's wife, and she I don't want to get like personal and use names, so I won't. I'll try and be vague. Okay. She basically was betrayed by this single lady who was her close girlfriend in her church. And basically this lady got married and then like kind of did things in a weird way, and then like the marriage didn't work out, and now she wants to be this lady's best friend again and pretend like nothing ever happened, like there was no sin that had come between them, which is hard, right? Like that's a very hard providence to walk through. We've all been betrayed by someone in the church, outside of the church, whether it's your family, your parents, siblings, best friend. I think this is just sort of like a universal human truth. Do you agree?
Uh-huh. Yeah, no, I would agree. I mean, if you haven't ever been, then you're probably the one doing it.
True story.
But I mean, we're people, so we all make mistakes, things happen, and it's whether you meant for it to or not.
Right. And like there are just hardships that we will all walk through in our lifetimes. And it is just like an unavoidable truth that this is going to be probably something you have to deal with, whether, in the near future or not so near future, but like just, this is just a good thing to kind of have worked out in your heart and in your head, because the natural reaction when you're betrayed or hurt is to
hurt back, honestly.
Yeah, like to punch back, right? Like you were hurt and you want to hurt back, because sometimes it can feel like a self-defense mechanism, and sometimes it can be for more malicious reasons, like because you actually intentionally do want to hurt someone.
Yep, I just had this conversation with one of my children. They were trying to like include themselves into a conversation between one of my other children and a friend, and were feeling left out. And when they weren't agreed with, they were like, well, mom said da da da, and something that didn't need to be brought up in the moment. They knew it was going to upset the other one. It wasn't even bad. It was just like they weren't going to get something that they wanted, but they did it to, like you said, like it was like in a malicious way and stuff. So there had to be obviously a conversation of like, think about where your heart was when you said that. And I think that's like all of us.
Right.
We very much, that's a child who has to be trained up and taught, versus, us as adults who should know better, who are,
Right. Well, and Christians, right?
Yeah,
like
no,
we're Christians.
Yeah.
So
I was gonna say that, but then I thought, well, so are my children.
Right.
So I didn't want them to sound like they weren't in the covenant, or that I thought that. But yeah, no, like we are adults. We are Christians, and we very much need to be thinking about how we're saying things, who we're saying them to, why we're saying them. Because it can be very malicious in the moment of being betrayed, and just act out of anger and frustration and hurt.
There are obviously different levels to this, because if we're talking to a woman who's being like physically abused by her husband, the advice we would give to someone like that is obviously going to be way different than to someone whose girlfriend hurt their feelings. Like, oh, my best friend didn't, invite me to her Christmas party, or, you know what I mean? Like that, they're two different things, right? Yeah. Obviously one is incredibly more serious and it needs to be dealt with differently. We would never tell the woman being abused, just persevere on through it, honey. Like, that's not what we're saying.
Suck it up, buttercup.
Exactly. So for the sake of this conversation, we're obviously not going to be talking about those types of serious situations. Just want to throw out that disclaimer right away. We do not advocate for any kind of abuse. Okay. I was thinking about Hosea. And in the book of Hosea, in case, it's been a while since some of you have gone through it, Hosea is commanded by God to take for himself a whoring wife. And when I say whoring, I mean like literally whoring. Like God literally tells him, yo, you're going to take this woman. She is not going to be faithful to you. And you're going to love her, and you're going to deal with her and all of her whoring. And in this way, you're going to represent my relationship with Israel and Judah and all of their adultery and all of their unfaithfulness. And if you, it's only 14 chapters, so it's not like a terribly long book. In this book of the Bible, some of the language is kind of funny, because it's just, I don't know, it's like so true of the human heart, right? Like, Hosea's wife ends up like leaving him. She gets pregnant, has several children. All the names given to these kids are like, not my people, or it's like God is literally saying, you are not acting like my people. You are not acting like my covenant people. And isn't that exactly what we do? Like, isn't that our like human heart tendency? And I just thought this was like funny and convicting, because when you're reading through Hosea, it's really easy to identify with Hosea and feel like, I know how you feel, Hosea. Like, I too have been betrayed. I too have gone after the whoring wife. I too have had to deal with all these. And then you're like, and then you stop and realize, yeah, but you're the whoring wife. Like that's literally what God is saying, is that you are the one who chases after all these foreign gods. You're the one that goes after all of these, other husbands. And even though it was Hosea who had given his wife every good gift and who had bestowed upon her all of these, wonderful coverings and beautiful garments, and he fed her and given her all these things, she still wants to go after something else. She's still chasing after something else. And that's exactly what we do to God. Think about all the things that he gives us, and we still chase after other things.
Yeah, and and even after he takes us back over and over again and forgives us of ourselves, and then we have the audacity to sit there and be like, but my friend hurt my feelings.
Right.
my friend did this.
Now, this is where I think we need to tread a little carefully, because certainly what we're not saying is the relationship hasn't changed. Because the thing that didn't happen is that Hosea didn't treat his wife as though she wasn't an adulteress. Like she was, and he treated her that way, and God even calls her that. So it's not like in the story that she's just like, everyone acts as though she's not doing the things that she's doing. It is fully aware for everyone on display. And I think in those chapters, it even says something to the effect of like, God uncovered her nakedness, something like that, but in front of all of her lovers, right? Like she basically is embarrassed and humiliated in front of all of her lovers. And when you read something like that, you're like, that's a really weird little section. Like, what am I reading right now? This seems like really lurid and like just strange, But you're like, but that's what God does when he's working stuff out in our hearts. How often does it feel like God is uncovering our nakedness? And sometimes the uncovering of the nakedness, I feel like, is just like everyone, like your shame is made manifest to everyone around you. Everyone can see the shame, because how can they not? Whether it's gossip, whether it's lying, whatever it is. Hopefully you're not like actually physically having an affair on your husband. Hopefully you're not the adulteress. But it's always good before you start like addressing other people's sins to like be really honest about your own, which is a thing we just don't do often enough.
Well, who wants to admit your own sin? It's much easier to point out somebody else's. Right. And so the whole, speck in the eye versus the log in your own.
Right. And even that verse, the one that you just mentioned, is often taken to be like, well, because you do have sin in your own life, you have no right to deal with someone else's. But that isn't what that's saying either. What it's saying is you do need to deal with your own sin before you can deal with someone else's sin. It's not that because you're a sinner, you can't deal with like, confronting another sinner, which is what it too often ends up being. Like that's how it's used. Yeah. Anyway, but the whole point of Hosea taking this wife is not to just make Hosea miserable. Like God wasn't being cruel to Hosea in all of this. He really is using it to teach Hosea about Hosea's sin, and then God works out the sin in the wife. And Hosea just needs to be faithful to what God told him to do. And that is the principle that I think we can all take and apply, is that what has God called you to do, then you need to be faithful in that. That doesn't mean that, faithfulness doesn't look like you can just allow yourself to be screwed over and over and over and over and over again because God told Hosea to take a whore of a wife. Like that's not the principle there, you don't become the doormat either.
Hosea didn't act like his wife wasn't full of sin. He didn't just say, he knew, he prayed about it, he goes out and fetches her over and over again. Like, God
Mm-hmm.
called him to this. He was faithful in it. And then he, but he didn't just act like it wasn't a thing either.
Right. This is the danger with having poor hermeneutics, is that there are like weird branches in like cults in Christendom that would just like try and do a one-to-one comparison rather than extract this principle, rather than try and figure out like what is actually being taught. This was to a particular person in a particular context, in a particular time in history, but there is still a principle that we can gather and glean from. And this was just my advice to my friend, is like, well, what do you believe God's calling you to do? What are you called to do? And sometimes loving someone and being a friend to them looks like bearing their burdens and being quiet, praying for them and not being nitpicky, right? And then sometimes it looks like loving them is going to mean opening your mouth and confronting them on their sin. And this is where you just need wisdom to know, like, what is God calling you to do in this particular situation? But in all of it, you need to make sure you understand that, like, guys, you're dealing with this hardship with this person, perhaps, or people. Maybe it's both of your in-laws.
Yeah.
That was incredibly loud. Sorry, y'all.
I know. Sorry. I was trying to get rid of it.
Like, whatever it is, though, you have to realize that you are complicit in the sin just by virtue of being an Adam. Like, you are, like, there's sin in the world, but there's also sin in you. Does that make sense? I guess that's what I'm trying to get across first. And dealing with your own sin, being honest with yourself before the Lord. And then you may, like you said, deal with the speck in your brother's eye. That comes after you deal with the log in your own.
I mean, yes, they may have sinned against you, but like, how bitter are you against it? You know, are you going around telling everybody about it? About how wrong you were? Are you?
Yep.
Are you sitting there begrudging them? Maybe even in silence? You know, are you sitting there in silence and like every little thing that they do irritates you, and you're just like, I need to look at them? Are you, you know, like what is, you know, have you went to them and spoken to them about maybe the wrong that was done to you? Have you spoken to them and said, hey, you know, this is the problem?
Right.
And then sometimes, you know what? Sometimes you go to the person and they could really care less. Turns out.
Or sometimes,
like, whatever.
Sometimes there is an opportunity for you to speak to them because they're in prison or they're dead, and then you can't have a conversation. And those types of hardships are even harder because it's so hard to get over that kind of bitterness. You know, like a father who has been absent in your life, or someone who paralyzed your child, you know, in a car wreck, or like there are real sins and real hardships. And we're not saying that the hardship isn't real, right? Like Hosea's wife was actively committing adultery. That was a real hardship. And yet God had given Hosea a command, and Hosea had to obey, regardless of how he felt. And so that is the thing that we're trying to get at, is that however you feel, it doesn't necessarily matter. What has God called you to do? Then you need to do that regardless of how you feel about that person or that situation. And you obeying God doesn't mean winking at the sin. That's not what we're saying either, because God did not wink at our sin, right? God sent down his only son to die for sin because that was the just penalty for our sin, was death. Like, no one, when a real sin is committed, regardless of how devastating it is, it's whether it says something as silly as my friend didn't invite me to her Christmas party, or as serious as my dad molested me, whatever it is, whatever the varying degrees are, sin, the punishment for sin is death. Death needs to cover it. And so if you are ever going to be reconciled with your friend or with your father, with anyone, right? Death needs to happen. No, there's for sure, there is death that has to be involved. And what we're not saying is you go out and murder them. What we're saying is
don't do that.
you have to look to Christ. You have to look to Christ. He has already paid for it. And if he has paid for it, then you need to let it go. And this is where
or if you're the person who has done the wrong, then it's, it's seeking forgiveness and reconciliation. Like, if you know that you've done something, then you don't just hope it goes away either. You swallow your pride, because there's another sin right there, right? Your pride. And you confess the sin to whoever it needs to be confessed to, and you seek forgiveness.
Right. And humility requires death, because it requires death to self. If you're going to be humble enough to ask someone to forgive you, that is a death-like action. That is you humbling and putting yourself to death in order to actually bring about resurrection in the relationship. And you and I read through Jim Wilson's book on bitterness earlier this year.
Yep.
And there was one really good bit that you and I quote to each other often, when he says that bitterness remembers details.
Oh yeah.
And I just love that, because women are really good at remembering details.
Oh yeah, your husband does the wrong thing, and you remember back 20 years ago when I tripped over that step and you didn't catch me, and remember, and I don't remember that. Oh yeah, I remember, because I hit my big toe and you were right there to my right, and it's like
laughed.
all those,
you
laughed. And it was
Yeah.
like a snickering laugh. It was like, or whatever,
Yeah.
like we remember all those little details, and we're going to be sure to point them out.
Yep. You always, and you never, and yeah. Bitterness remembers detail. And also, bitterness doesn't actually care about the welfare of the other person.
Yeah.
And so, like, you want to know if you're bitter, ask yourself, could you serve that person? Would you be able to? Would you be able to serve the person who tried to harm you, who tried to hurt you? That's what Hosea did, right? Like, he sought after the woman who was trying to, like, who was actually hurting him. And that's what Christ did.
Home, cared for her,
dressed her, fed her.
Was still a husband to her.
Right. Anyway, so I just thought, like, these are some really good questions to ask. And it's the holiday season, guys. Like, this will come out the week of Christmas, I think.
Oh yeah, so things always happen when family gathers. That's like the big joke, right? About the holidays is like getting everybody together, and who's gonna offend who, and so on and so forth. And maybe just like try not to be so offended by every single thing.
And
well.
once again, this doesn't mean that there isn't going to be a real offense. Your mother-in-law might look at you and say, I'm giving that baby a piece of cake, regardless of whether he's 6 months old or not. And you're like, I really don't want the baby to have a piece of cake. He's only 6 months old. And it's now a whole blow-up situation. And you're just kind of like, but it's my kid. Why were you even having this conversation? And these are real hurts, real situations, like boots on the ground. Like, I get it. I get that it can be hard, right? And it's going to take wisdom to navigate through this stuff. And we're not saying you just do whatever she wants you to do. Like,
no, we're not saying that either. We're saying, like, if a slight harsh word comes by someone who acts, maybe snips a little bit under the pressure, that doesn't normally snip at you, or isn't quite such normally a harsh person, maybe we look at the character of the person and say, you know what, they're normally like that. Maybe they're just really stressed out, and I'm not going to be so offended by that right now.
Yeah, you don't have to be offended, even if they mean it offensively.
Yeah, I'm gonna let this one go.
Yeah.
And sometimes there are times, obviously, to address issues. There's always a time and a place for all things. And that might have, there might come a point where something does have to be addressed. But in some cases, we can choose whether we're going to be offended by said thing or not. And in some cases, we can choose to give grace. And like you said, in all things, we need to ask ourselves, what has God called us to?
And you just use the phrase, like, give grace. This is what I want to say about grace. Is that
I didn't mean it in that sense, but you know what I'm saying. Like, sometimes you just.
Well, I think it's good that you said it, actually, because when you give someone grace, it means getting them out of sin, right? So if you're the one in sin, get yourself out of sin. If the other person's in grievous sin, right? Like, that your friend is flirting with one of her neighbors, and like she means quote unquote nothing by it, but whatever. Like, no, you need to get in there, you need to address that with your friend, right? And that is giving her grace. Giving her grace doesn't mean just winking at her sin. It means doing what happened in the book of Hosea, where there's all kinds of prophecies about Ephraim and his issues, and Judah and Israel and all these things. And what is happening is that God is saying, here is all your sins, I'm laying them out for you. Repent, come back. Like, I'm gonna make this people who wasn't my people, my people. And how does he do that? He does it by giving them grace, by getting them out of their sin, by giving them Christ, by actually applying, Christ's blood to the situation, right? And that's what we need to do. We need to actually apply atonement, which is obviously not a thing that we can do. But what I'm saying is, we need to look at the situation and we need to say, Christ has atoned for this. And because he has, I can forgive. Who am I to not forgive if Christ already has? Do you know what I mean? Like, we are not greater than he. And so if we are holding a little grudge, let's just say your mother-in-law has apologized, right? Like, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to offend you, step on your toes. And you're kind of like, but I know you did. I know you did. I know you're just saying that so my husband doesn't get mad at you or whatever. Okay. So now we're getting into okay, you need to forgive her because she's asked for forgiveness. You're being embittered and you're saying, well, Christ has already covered her sin, but I am not going to look at it like that. I'm not going to look at her as though Christ's blood has washed that sin away. I'm going to look at her as though she is still in sin. And all you're doing is putting yourself in a place above God. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So I'm actually quite happy that you did say that. I do also, if we can, let me see if I can search it without messing up our recording. I was just going to read the last few verses in Hosea 14 because I just think they're so good. This is what it says. Who is wise, and he shall understand these things, prudent, and he shall know them. For the ways of the Lord are right, and the just shall walk in them, but the transgressors shall fall therein. And this is all we're simply trying to say, is that if you are wise, walk in the ways of the Lord, right? If you're wise, follow them because they're good. And if there are fools, and there will be fools, they will fall because that's just how God has set creation to work. Like, a fool will always fall because they can't not, because they're foolish, right?
Yeah.
And if you walk in the ways of the Lord and you are looking into the matters of your own heart, you're trying to ensure that you are not in sin over a situation or a person or persons. Like you said, be humble, repent, be open, be willing to forgive, be willing to let Christ's blood cover the offense. Honestly, all it is just keeping short accounts. And it's so good to keep short accounts, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, who wants to sit there and be angry at every single person all day long, every day? Certainly not me.
Yep.
That's not a fun life, I can tell you that.
It's really not. And for those people who don't want to be in fellowship with you, those people who are choosing to just be miserable little cows who just want to sit, if you have friends who are just rude to you, or a mother-in-law who just doesn't want to be in fellowship with you, then let them be, right? Because the fools will fall in their own sin. That's what God says, and you can trust him.
Yep.
And you can
Good
choose
stuff.
to be happy. So we're going to entitle this episode Ho-Ho-Hosea. Because I can't not.
I mean, yeah.
It just kind of is applicable in all
every
ways,
like 90s, every 90s kid part of me wants to be like, she the hoe.
We all are, ladies. We are all the hoe.
Right.
That's the funny part, is that we are all the whore who is sought after things that are an abomination. So let's start there this holiday season and keep short accounts. And drink tea.
Right? Drink your stress relieving tea. It still just, it cracks me up. Like, it's actually gonna relieve stress. Like,
That gives you magical what does it say? What was the box that gave you magical powers or something?
Yes,
What did it say?
like,
Something stupid.
I don't. Yeah, it's like magically releases your stress. I'm like, yeah, no, I don't think that's how that works.
If you have no idea what we're talking about, it's because you didn't listen to the last episode. Oh man. Well, I
Oh,
think
I'm
this
just
was
like,
hopefully this is beneficial. I feel like I needed to like talk through this personally. So I hope this is
well, I
helpful
mean,
for
you
everyone
called
else.
me all excited about Hosanna, and I'm like, oh, Hosanna just hurts my soul so much. This is
Hosea,
like,
not Hosanna. Quit your
well, that's
drinking.
what I meant. Right. Sorry, I'm
Quit your
watching my
drinking tea.
neighbor
It's getting
walk
to your
by
head.
me, looking at me like I'm talking to myself.
Now we know that Sondra's putting more than just a little bit of honey in her tea.
I mean, you do what you got to do during the season. I have a little bit of a tickle in the back of my throat. It's just helping me.
Or it could just be celebratory, right? Like it is the season to drink celebratory drinks.
There you go.
Honestly, okay, this is like a real question though. If you were gonna add like a little bit of something to your tea, like you do coffee, like you know how you can put like Bailey's in your coffee or Kahlua or something,
Yeah.
which is delicious.
Yeah.
What would you put in your tea? Like what?
I mean,
What would that be?
obviously you do like the Jack Daniel's honey one.
Yeah, you could do that, I suppose. Well, depending what flavor, but I could see that.
Because it has like the honey
Maybe,
in it, you know.
or like to peppermint tea, like because I always put creamer in my peppermint tea. We talked about this. I wonder if you could just add like a Bailey's and it would do the same
Well,
thing.
I mean, obviously, yeah, you could do that. I mean, so cream. I thought you were talking about like, we couldn't do like the creamy ones, like can't
Well,
do the
sometimes
coffee
you
ones.
can't. Sometimes you can't because we've done this before. Remember that hibiscus tea that we liked? You could not
Uh-huh.
put dairy in that tea because it curdled.
No, it's true. But I thought you wanted me to go hard liquor.
Oh, I mean, I'm here for that too. But don't they also have like, the Jack Daniels have like a cider, like a cider flavored whiskey or something?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, most of them come out with like some form of a cider, some like
Yeah.
apple, flavor stuff this time of year and stuff.
Ooh, that would be very good to have like the apple flavored like whiskey or something in like a cinnamon flavored tea. Because it'd be like cinnamon and apple.
Yep. That'd be good. I was trying to think of you can normally get like different flavored liquors too,
Yeah, that's true.
Like you have like you have like orange schnapps and stuff like that.
Yeah, peppermint. There's even chocolate.
I don't like chocolate in my liquor at all. It just grosses me out so
I don't care for it either. There was a lady at church on Sunday that I was discussing this very topic with, not this one exactly, but like we were talking about what we put in coffee, like liquor wise. This is not a thing that I ever do. Like I literally
I don't
put anything.
I don't think I ever put liquor in my coffee, to be perfectly honest with you. I feel like, I'm in like one of those old detective movies right now, where they're sneaking it from their desk or something.
This is not a thing that we do. This makes us sound like alcoholics. We're not. I've never even done it. But this conversation has just come up several times, and I don't know why. Maybe I should try it. But this is what I thought was interesting. Once again, I'm iffy on the mint thing anyway. But she always puts the peppermint schnapps in her coffee because it sweetens it and it adds the mintiness.
Christmassy. Yeah, I mean, there's lots of people that add, like a mint creamer. I mean, it's very popular this time of year. So I can see that being good. I can see it being good.
Yeah.
You know what though? I'm just gonna be honest with you. I want my liquor to be my liquor. Like
want it like in a cocktail, or you're drinking it straight up.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, like if I'm gonna have it, I mean,
are you a sipper? Like, are you gonna sip liquor?
I mean, why are you asking me? You know the type of person I am.
So you will sip. Will you have a dram? Will you have a dram of like a scotch with your husband? Would you?
I mean, if you really wanted me to, I'd probably sit there and do it and be like, ew, this is gross. I want like a cocktail, or I want like a glass of wine.
Okay. That's fair. That's how I am too. I want to learn to like it because my husband likes it so well. I taught myself to like beer. That was my big project over the summer. And I like it now. I kind of I worked myself into it.
I do not like beer. I mean, it just, to me, is like,
I don't like all kinds of beers though. But your husband doesn't like good beer.
You did give me one time that I didn't mind sipping.
Okay. I want to say this for the whole world. Sondra's husband, no, Scotty, he has terrible taste in beer. He likes like the amber ales, and amber ales are disgusting. So I feel like if you were to be with me, you would like my beers.
But he honestly, like, if I mean, he'll drink a beer, but he would
Uh-huh.
prefer he'd prefer liquor.
I mean, it's far fewer calories. I'll give him that.
I mean, just in general, he just does not prefer. I mean, he doesn't prefer beer. So like when you come and we get all that beer, we have all that. We'll like buy beer and try different beers and stuff. And you know, you can't just. I mean, most of the time you can't just buy one unless you're your particular stores. But normally we'll go wherever, because since we are military, it depends on where we're living at the time. But we'll go, and like when you guys were here, we found ones that were kind of more exclusive to here, and we all tried them and stuff.
Right.
And he'll do that like very willingly, and he, you know, he enjoys doing that with like Grant and stuff. But here at home, like very rarely will he like be like, I want to grab a 6-pack. Most of the time, he'll just be like, I'm gonna have a little bit of Jack and Coke, or I'm gonna have a little bit of Scotch, or whatever it is he decides he, you know, fancies at the time. So we have like a liquor cabinet full of different types of liquors, and he'll just have a little bit here and there. But he won't just, most of the time he doesn't just want a beer with his dinner.
Right. See, my husband likes all of it.
Yeah, no, I know.
He's not
like,
an alcoholic.
Scotty would like rather have like, he'll eat his dinner or whatnot, and then like go and like have a drink and like smoke on his pipe or a cigar or something.
So here's a fun thing to do. Okay, ladies, like if your husband does like beer, my husband loves craft beer. He likes beer that I don't necessarily like. Like he loves IPAs, and that's like a thing I can't get into. But I will drink a beer with him, just not his beer yet. But anyway, we got into this habit of like, we were also military for 10 years, and then we've just moved a lot since he got out of the military. But whenever we travel, like whatever states we're traveling through, we'll stop at like a gas station or like a liquor store, and we'll get like a 6-pack of like, try and get like different an assortment of different kinds of beers that are local craft beers for that state or that area. And it's just kind of a fun thing to try beers that you wouldn't normally have access to, right?
Well, it is fun. We always enjoy it. And then because we inevitably always have like, because we all buy them when you're here, because it's like the thing that we don't typically do, and we don't drink a lot of beer. So so then we always have extra. So then Scotty always like, you know, we'll have some friends over and be like, hey, we've got an assortment, you know, and that, which just makes it fun for everybody, because it just gets carried down, you know, the line.
So then you can try all the different kinds of things. So if you're a wife out there and you know that your husband enjoys craft beer and you do a lot of traveling, just start doing that for him. Just, you know, it's a fun thing to do, and it's something different and unique, and what a fun way to bless your husband if he likes that sort of thing.
Yep. No, so now I just try to figure out like, you know, a really nice bottle of something to add to his collection. That's what I started doing. Now I ask, you know, Grant occasionally, like, hey, what's this?
Are you going to give him a bottle of something for Christmas?
I probably will, but I don't know what. I've been trying to figure out what, you know, what I should get this time around. Last time I got him a bottle last time Grant was here, so that him and Grant could try it, and that was like a big surprise to him, because, you know, obviously it wasn't like a special time of year or anything, so he wasn't really expecting it. And I got him that really nice bottle, and then they enjoyed that. And then he had someone in the military, with one of his higher ups, gave a bunch of people some, I don't know what it was, but remember, because him and Grant and your brother were all, and Lane were, they were totally geeking out, and we were making fun of them. Yeah, I don't know what it was.
The man that did it, he wasn't a drinker, but he was gifted it or something, right?
Yeah, it was like like a whole case of stuff. So he gave them to different, I think it was like essentially people that he was deployed with that he felt had made a big difference, and Scotty was one of the ones. So it was a very big compliment to Scotty as well. But then on top of it, it was like something that was good, and Scotty knew it was good, and so he was. Let me just tell you how the man was like so excited for his best friend to come, so that he could be like, he just kept saying, I can't wait for Grant to get here, because we're gonna have this drink. And I'd be like, I'm like, I don't even know what it is, so I'm just like, whatever.
Right.
You know? I'm like, well, and then he tells Grant, and Grant like geeks out with him over it, and I'm like, I mean, apparently it must have been good, but you guys are a bunch of nerds.
Here's another tip though for all you ladies, if you're fixing to do the same thing. If you don't know what your husband likes, because this is not your realm or whatever, take a picture of what he already has, and then take it to the liquor store and be like, this is what my husband drinks. What do you like? I know what he has now, so you can get something he doesn't have. But also it'll help the workers at the store like kind of get a gauge for what your husband likes.
Like, yeah. And Google, you can Google too. Like if your husband's really into bourbons, you can Google like nice bourbons, what's a good bourbon and stuff. And you can normally kind of read about them. And that's what I did last time, is like I kind of read about it, and then I kind of picked one that was like in the price range that I was willing to spend, and then went and got that. Because some of them can be like really expensive, and then they can be like ridiculously expensive and not even any good.
Right.
I've made that mistake before, where I bought something that was like really expensive, and my husband was like, "This isn't even any good," and I'm like, "Well, figure out what you want to do with it because you own it now."
I mean, that's why bourbon is safer. I feel like, 'cause you could always mix a bourbon. Scotch, you can't mix. Doesn't mix. Not a good mixer. So tastes like cough syrup always, and I don't care what anyone says to me. That's always what makes Scotch drinks taste like. So we can end on that note.
There you go. Now that we sound like a bunch of alcoholics over here.
'Tis the season to be jolly.
La 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 la.
This is why Sondra and I don't sing.
La 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 la.
Merry Christmas. We hope it's wonderful, and Happy New Year. You probably won't hear from us until January, so blessings on your holiday season.